Thursday night, 8 p.m. You know what that means. It's time for your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, and it is the aftermath of the biggest weekend of the year in professional wrestling, WrestleMania Weekend in Philadelphia. We're going to look at everything that went down and all the surrounding events, all that kind of stuff, whether it was WWE, NXT, various other shows like ROH that went on, all kinds of stuff happening in Philadelphia this past weekend. We're going to get into all of it. We're going to take a look at the new era that has been christened for WWE. What does that mean? What does it look like now that we're here? Times are a-changing, and after all that, folks, we got security camera footage. We have some choices that were made, and we're going to get into that in the realm of AEW. So buckle in, folks, and stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast starts right now.
Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt, Big Gold Belt.
Hello, everybody. Glad you are here with us. Thursday night, 8 p.m., your Big Old Belt Wrestling Podcast is live each and every week, and it comes no bigger this week as it is the aftermath of WrestleMania Weekend, so we have a lot to get into. I got the giant crab, Jamal, with me here this week because the guys are busy. They are all over the place. If you were following along online this weekend at Big Gold Belt, to James, getting the interviews live on the scene in Philadelphia. Lots of interviews with WWE stars that are still going up, I think, even as of today. So lots of on-the-scene coverage. And he's currently out in Vegas at CinemaCon, getting a lot of scoops on the upcoming movies. So if you're not following Big Gold Belt right now, good time to check out because he was just posting some stuff up about Wolverine and Deadpool. So some previews are being shown out in Vegas. So as we always say, wrestling, movies, comics, and more all happen here at Big Gold Belt Media. But tonight it is pro wrestling, WrestleMania Weekend. I think I just have the point now where I feel like I'm over it. It's out of my system. It took a few days because Lord knows it is always a whirlwind, but we are a few days removed. It's done. And you were traveling for the eclipse and everything, Jamal.
Yes.
Have you recovered from your trip?
Oh yeah. I mean, I went to work on Tuesday, so so you still got to pay the bills. But I did keep up with a little bit of the WrestleMania stuff because of the fact that it came on earlier because I was in the Central Time Zone. But I definitely wanted to see if a lot of our predictions that we made last week panned out and what the ramifications would be. So yeah, it was an interesting time.
There we go. I guess the best way to do this is just kind of dive right in because Lord knows, I think there were some like 40-something events over the WrestleMania weekend in general, and Lord knows we can't get into everything, and I don't think there's any way people could have seen everything because there's just too much damn going on, and especially stuff at the same time, but there's a lot. But I think you gotta start with the biggest of all. We gotta start with like the Super Bowl, so to speak, WrestleMania itself, since hell that's 2 nights to begin with right there.
Mm-hmm.
But my general takeaway, which I've seen a lot of people saying, is that I think of the 2 nights, night 2 was more fun and a little bit tighter and a little bit nicer and better overall than night 1, which in a lot of ways kind of surprised me because the last couple of years since they've gone to this 2-night format, I've tended to like the first night better. And I think it's kind of been because like, oh, it's the first night, it's more exciting, you're all like amped up for stuff, and then by the time you get to night 2, it's kind of like, I was watching this yesterday, now we're just kind of like, the show continues. But this year, I thought they nailed night 2 a little bit better than night 1. I think just because it was a tighter show. It flowed a little bit better overall, in my opinion, and how they laid stuff out. But I don't know, how do you want to, should we look at both nights? Should we just talk highlights? I mean, we can kind of do it.
Well, I mean, obviously the stuff with the bloodline is front and center of WrestleMania this year. Okay, so I think we could save that for a little bit later. So I guess the first question is, you say that night 2 flowed better. Well, it did. It was also an hour shorter.
Yes, it was definitely a shorter show. One less match, 2.
Yeah, so I mean, it was an hour shorter. It was just less time. It ended in a good spot at around 10.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was I was okay with that being a thing, and these WrestleMania shows tend to drag on until they became 2 nights, and it still went over. The night one ended up being damn near midnight, and it's just like, why? So yes, it was night two. Definitely was a more efficient show to watch. Now, how do we feel about night one? Because it definitely had some. I think night one may have been the more interesting on paper. Again, not including the bloodline stuff, because I think that's one match. I look at that as one match. But you had, would Becky Lynch, not knowing what her contract situation is, would she be able to take over Rhea Ripley? Rhea said that she was hurt, working through some injuries. Should she, drop the belt and recover a little bit? You have Jade Cargill making her first WrestleMania. It's a WrestleMania debut in that 6-woman tag match. How would she look? Not just in a big stage, as we've seen her in AEW pay-per-views, but the biggest stage, WrestleMania. Sami Zayn, would he be able to overcome Gunther, who, borrow stretches, could absolutely go on continue the run as Intercontinental Champion, but also, to be fair, he should be in the main heavyweight championship picture. Why wouldn't he? So I think night one definitely had some questions, more questions that I had for night one than night two.
Mm-hmm.
But and night two was okay overall, but I definitely had more questions. But it was more intrigue into night one.
Yeah, going into it on paper, I was much more interested in night one. There was more matches on there that had my interest between Rhea and Becky. Gunther and Sami Zayn was a big question mark. What was going to happen with Jade, like you mentioned, that was a big question mark. How that ladder match for the tag titles was going to work, that I was wondering about. There was definitely more overall on the card that I was excited about on night one. I think the biggest, honestly, when I look at night one, I think the biggest issue is just it ran a little long, and the main event went way longer than it had.
The main event is still going on. I mean, it's ridiculous.
They dragged that damn tag match out way longer than it needed to be. And that was probably the biggest issue. By the time that show was done, it was kind of like, the taste in your mouth that tag match left was not crazy. Even though it got to the destination it needed to get to, the result was right. It was just the body of the match itself was just like, oh my God, this did not need to go 45 minutes and probably a whole hour once you add in all the damn introductions and everything.
Well, that was part of the problem. The main event for night one, we weren't exactly watching it because we had a question about who should win. We just wanted to see if WWE was going to do what they should have done and have The Rock and Roman win so that they could have an ODQ match for night two, or absolutely, book themselves into a corner by having Cody versus Roman be in a traditional match. It just doesn't make sense for them to do so, considering that WWE WrestleMania is built on spectacle. Why would you purposely take that away? Now, so we weren't really. That match could have been 15 high impact minutes, and I don't think anyone would have complained because we already knew what the destination was. We didn't know what the journey was going to be to get there. That journey should not have taken 45 minutes.
No, a tight 15 to 20 would have been would have been perfectly fine. It would have got us where we needed to go, but it was what it was. I think they're probably hung up on I think the two things that came into play is they worked a very slow pace at the beginning because I think everyone was very cognizant of we all have to come back tomorrow night. And then on top of that, you had Dwayne out there in a major role to where it's like, don't no one want to get stuck in the position of, I hurt the big boss that's on the chairman of the board. Right. So I think everyone was being a little careful. And then as the match went on, they loosened up some, but it took a little while for them to get there and get their motor running on that match. But it is what it is. Overall, I'd say Gunther and Sami Zayn probably was the best match overall that night. But out in a lot of ways, most But I kind of had a lot more fun watching the Jade, Bianca, and Naomi match against Damage Control. I thought that darn trios was like a lot of damn fun. And now it's like a tight 8-minute match where it was just kind of like bang, bang, bang. Everyone kind of got in, got their little shine, and then they got out of there. It didn't overstay its welcome or anything, but it also didn't feel like anyone got shortchanged in.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, that was kind of the match that I was hoping for the main event. Not necessarily 8 minutes, but just in a tighter, more compact, knowing that regardless, we're going to see these guys again tomorrow. Just, okay, go ahead, get it in, be done. Let's go to bed. Night 2. And then, nope, that was 45 minutes.
I guess they wanted to make sure folks in Philly got their quotient of The Rock for their night 1 main event, maybe. That might have been part of it, because Lord knows they are charging an arm and a leg. Otherwise, on that darn day, I guess the other big surprise I'd say of night 1 was Jimmy and Jey Uso. That match just did not, for me at least, and everyone I was watching it with at the house I was at, that match did not work. The Battle of the Usos just fell incredibly flat for the people I was hanging out with. And it seems I've seen a lot of people chiming in with that online, but for whatever reason, that match just did not click. I don't know. Brother versus brother matches are tricky like that.
Yeah. I mean, it really has to. Yeah, it's really up to the brothers themselves, because this thing has been dragged on for so long that it's kind of like, well, someone would have to die. I mean, we know that eventually, in the end, this thing, you guys are going to go back and forth, and it's not something that we haven't seen before. It's just kind of like, okay, well, it's almost like Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens at this point, where it's just like, I know it's going to be a decent match. I've seen this match 7 or 8 times before. I know that I'll be okay with it. I don't need this right now.
Yeah. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of what it was.
I think the suspension of disbelief kind of hurts it too, where I think most people are just like looking at it and they're like, I know these guys really don't like have an issue with each other. We know they're not like really estranged. It's just, I don't know, I think the brother thing makes it tricky. It almost makes it a bridge too far in modern times. The only wrestler, I mean, Bret and Owen Hart got it right back in '94, but they played it more up like, where Owen wanted to get out of his brother's shadow and be like, just be the better wrestler and be, the bigger star. But it wasn't like, there wasn't that, they weren't trying to add that like maliciousness on top of it. It was just, I want to prove I'm the better wrestler and the best wrestler in the family over you, which was a lot more like, okay, that you can do, it's a lot more workable. But I don't know, probably enough about night 1 at this point. Let's get to night 2.
Right.
Night 2 was a lot tighter. Now, right off the bat, night 2 opened with a bang. We knew going into this, I was like, we've been talking for months how Drew McIntyre has been on a hell of a roll, has just been like knocking it out of the park with this version of how he's been doing things with his character and the real life drama he's been able to pull on with all this. So they opened night 2 with him and Seth Rollins, and we were figuring going in, we're like, it's probably Drew McIntyre's night. It feels like it's time for Seth to switch this title up finally, and they do it. And I like how they did their match, because their match pretty much was just like both of them just going for finishers. It was just like they were both just throwing bombs, just going for big shots and not trying to do some long drawn out thing, which to me worked with the idea that like Drew knows Seth is wore down from the night before. Seth knows he's not in good shape from the night before. So it's like, just throw haymakers and see what the hell happens, and the chips fall where they may. Right. And Drew comes out on top, but then we get the surprise of, hold up, it's Money in the Bank cash-in time. Here comes Damian Priest, has the added curveball into this whole thing. So I thought it worked out great as far as it opened night 2, like hot as could be, with like a ton of fire, and just had people like, oh my God, like anything could damn happen tonight. It set, I thought it set the tone for night 2 really good, especially coming off in night 1, just like doing a big, exciting opening like that with all that stuff all happening at once.
I think it was probably the best result that could have happened, considering that I don't care about this match. Rollins has been kind of the third wheel in the triangle, the bloodline triangle between The Rock, Roman, and Cody. Drew McIntyre, it may be out of the company sooner than later. And yeah, sure, Damian Priest has the Money in the Bank cash in, and it's kind of like, I don't need this match either. Regardless of who wins, but it's going to whatever. Oh yeah, Money in the Bank, hot damn. And now that we have Drew McIntyre as a major champion, I'm sorry, Damian Priest is a major champion. I'm very interested in how this goes. You mentioned the new era. Well, this is part of that, and I want to see what they actually do with it. You have a lot of new names and a lot of different positions.
Mm-hmm.
So I really hope that we do see Gunter in the main championship title picture. Damian Priest has that belt, one of those belts right now. Cool. Who will his defenders be? And of course, Cody's is the first undisputed champion in what, 2 years, something like that.
Why 3, I think.
Okay, right. It's a hideously long time.
1,316 days. So
yeah, so it's it is a chance for them to really, in more ways than one. And it's honestly, at first it was a metaphor, and now it really has superseded that, because Raw is going to be on Netflix, and the network is going away. Coming, I want to say next year. They're starting to branch out with their premium live events. Their backlashes in France, and they had the other thing, Elimination Chamber in Western Australia. They got another big thing in Germany. So we're starting, and that's on top of the Saudi shows. So we're definitely seeing WWE take different directions in a lot of the aspects of the company, visually, behind the scenes, creatively. And, they're not going to completely reinvent the wheel, because they still need to hook you in the thing that made them famous. But them being able to bring that to A, more of the world, and B, with new people doing it. LA Knight, for example, has kind of like come into his own recently, and is having arguably the best run of his wrestling career. I'm all for it. And it's as long as they can keep it up with something fresh and new, then I 100%, let's go. Let's get it done. So McIntyre, being a champion for 9 seconds, well, it is what it is, but he may not be long for the company anyway. So let's see what Damian Priest has to go with.
Yeah, no, we're definitely getting to the new era stuff in a bit once we finish up talking WrestleMania, because they hammered that point home throughout the weekend. New signature opening and all kinds of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
As far as the rest of night 2, the match I was least interested in of the whole damn both nights was the match with Lashley and the Street Profits against the Final Testament, Karrion Kross and his crew. And they managed to, I'll give them credit. I think they realized that was like kind of the match on the card that people are like going to go get their nachos and their sodas nearing. And they decided, what we're going to do to spice this up? We're in Philadelphia. This is going to be the ECW tribute match of the weekend. And they brought out Bubba Ray Dudley and had all the table spots and all that. And they brought out Snoop Dogg for commentary and all this. They found a way to spice that match up and make it entertaining. So I'll give them props on that, because Laura knows I did not care about that match at all. After that, we had LA Knight and AJ Styles, which honestly, for night 2, I think that was the sleeper match of night 2, where I didn't expect much from that match going in, but damn it, both of them went out there and it felt like they had something to prove. AJ looked the best he's looked in a long damn time in that match, and LA Knight kept up with him. So I was pleasantly surprised by those two. In that
for me, the match other than the Philadelphia street fight, I am absolutely not interested in whatever Logan Paul is doing. So that was not of interest to me. So Logan Paul and Randy Orton in the same match. That's definitely the match that I go and get some Chipotle in. And so and I missed most of that, but Bailey defeating Io Sky for the women's championship was pretty cool. And overall, I think just night 2 was just a more efficient show, and which of course set up the main event. Nothing really tried to outshine the main event, and it set the table pretty nicely for it. So Not that they shouldn't. Not that people shouldn't work their hardest to do so and give the best that they can. But nothing was presented in a way where it's just like, yeah, we got 5 minutes. We're going to burn this damn thing to the ground.
Yeah.
So the main event still was a centerpiece as it should be.
Yeah. I think Bayley and Io Sky did a great job of, they made sure their title match was just a straightforward match. There was no BS or didn't have damage control involved in it or nothing, where it was just like, they went out, the ladies had a match, title change. That was it. Straightforward as could be. They saved all your bells and whistles and interference and all your tricks that you could possibly do for Cody and Roman, which everyone knew going in. Once it was going to be bloodline rules, it was like, okay, half that damn locker room's going to come out. We're going to get cameos. We're going to get comebacks. And that's exactly what they did. Granted, I think the trick was they went a good 15, 17 minutes or so of like, okay, we're going to have a regular old match with some brawling around in the crowd and all this. Before we get to that, they didn't make the whole match all about that. But it was, I think they did what people were looking for. Like, all I was hearing that Sunday afternoon was like, it's going to be all about shenanigans and run-ins tonight. So they were like, you know what? That's what we're doing. Everyone knew it was coming, and they played that playbook, and it wasn't a surprise. And of course, lo and behold, we didn't know going in. We were all kind of like, are they really going to do it? It feels like it's time to do it, but hell, a lot of us thought it was time last year and they didn't do it. But here we are. Cody Rhodes is now your WWE Universal Champion. It has finally happened at 1,316 days. And I think my biggest takeaway really at the end of it all was how much effort they went into putting Cody over that night with just like this extra long celebration afterwards. It probably went a good 10 minutes almost. With,
I was really wondering if that was actually planned, or if the match wound up being shorter than it was for whatever reason. I think
it could be that it went short. I haven't heard that it went short. I mean, hell, it says here on Wikipedia it went 33 minutes. I think that might be I thought more than anything watching it, I was like, that felt like it was a product of the new era and the new production, to where the old days, they may go a couple minutes, fireworks go off and then boom, cut, see you Monday. They stayed with that so long that it felt to me like this was a new production element of just like, no, we're going to really kind of let this marinate, bring the family in and have them high five everybody, get up on the shoulders. And I thought it worked really well. I thought for a babyface win, it was a great way of doing it.
I thought it was different, and it was a bit of a surprise at how different it was that Cody brought his wife Eden Styles into the ring and all these other people, to help him out. His mom was there and such. Okay, cool. And it's like, okay, everybody out of the ring real quick. Point at the sign, and then explosions and pyro and stuff like that. Yeah. So I thought that start was kind of weird, thematically, because you can only sing that damn song so many times.
I think that thing might went whole through 3 times in a row.
Right. They had it on a 48-minute loop. They got the extended version, and it was kind of a weird thing to do, which kind of made me wonder: was this was it planned to the way it actually was, or did Roman suffer an injury, and they said, all right, let's just go to the finish, and we can, and Cody, you've won, now improv. We got about 8 minutes before we got to get off the air. What do you want to do with this time? And him grabbing a mic was really, and then bringing Triple H down was really, really, really surprising.
And Bruce Pritchard of all damn people.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
They're bringing out the executives. I mean, hell, the last image as they finally, cut it and went to black was Cody and Nick Khan shaking hands at ringside. And it was like, oh, they're bringing everybody out here.
Yeah. Super interesting that was that was how they ended. As far as the match goes, it's a 30-minute Roman Reigns match. But for all the things that the match wasn't, it's still, I would say overall as a whole, it definitely cemented this WrestleMania as one of the better ones in the last maybe 10 years.
I think the key thing is at the end of the day, they sent the folks home happy. And I think that goes a long way to you didn't have that people going watching it and then afterwards in frustration about it. Like, for the most part, people was being like, no, it was pretty damn good. I mean, the only real complaints I think I've heard is just that first night's main event went too damn long. But since night 2 made up for it, overall, people are like, no, this is a good WrestleMania.
Well, I mean, there's a difference between being sent home happy and being sent home displeased. Because if this show was boring for whatever reason, and there have been some WrestleManias that have surely dragged their ass through the mud,
no doubt,
and it's just like, why are we doing this to ourselves? That's one thing. Whether your person wins or not is a different thing. And that's those two are not the same. So I would say that regardless of the results and your affinity towards a particular talent, I think overall the presentation was solid. I wish the stage were better, but the presentation was solid. The celebrity surprises were cool. And the main event for night 2 was the run-in clusterfuck that we knew that it should have been, and they actually did it. I think that's really what it was most satisfying. They booked the show the way fans would like to have seen the show, and I think that's what it is. It's not that everybody had this great fantasy booking design. It's just that everybody agreed that, like, oh yeah, this is what we should do. And they did the thing. Cool. Let's go home.
There you go.
Because I'm guaranteed that there's a contingent of people that said that Roman should have won that match.
Oh, absolutely. There's some folks that still want the streak going one way or another.
Right.
We have not seen the last of Roman Reigns. I think he'll be disappearing for a bit, but we have not seen the last of Roman Reigns. I'm pretty sure about that. So, folks, we'll get into that in the second half. So here's what let's do. Let's do this. Let's take our break. We'll come back. After the break, we'll hit our indie spotlight, see what's going on the indies. And then we'll talk about this new era. Since they hammered home this idea of the new era, the question is, what is this new era? Where are we going from here? Because there's definitely a lot of pieces in play and people in different roles, as we were mentioning. And then after that, for the back half of the show, folks, we will talk about CM Punk, Jack Perry's closed circuit brawl video being put on national TV last night, and the thought process that must have went into that, or not thought process that went into that, because I think we are going to have some feelings to discuss on that one. So
yeah, we got a lot to talk about.
Yes, we got a lot to talk about. It's going to be a busy second half, folks. So stay with us. Your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. We'll be back right after this.
Big Gold Belt Media is your golden standard for all of your media needs. Visit BigGoldBelt.com for pro wrestling info, movies, comics, and even more digital content. On all of your social medias, follow us at Big Gold Belt all across the board. Listen to this show and more on your SoundCloud or wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome back, folks. When we come back from halftime here on the Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, we always like to check out what's going on with the indies. So here's Giant Crab with this week's Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast, Indie Spotlight.
Yep. So there's a couple of things that I want to bring to your attention. There's a lot going on. If you're down there in Melbourne, Australia, in the beautiful state of Victoria, StarCast is actually going to Australia. Yeah, Bischoff is there. Mickey James is there. Bret Hart is like one of the official MCs. Will Hobbs is going to be there. Jordan Grace is going to be there. So interesting lineup and many more. A lot of local talent. Tennille Dashwood is going to be there because Australia. But
by law, probably to be there.
I mean, yeah, I think he's like required, like obligated, but to be there. But because it's like the time difference in Australia is it's the middle of next week. You can still get tickets throughout the event. It's all weekend. It started Thursday the 11th, which would have been hours ago in Australia, and then moved on through the weekend. You can get your tickets at OceaniaProWrestling.com, OCEANIA ProWrestling.com. Just click on StarCast, and they got you covered. here, a little bit closer to us, next weekend, Virginia Championship Wrestling is coming back to Alexandria. They're going to be at the Chick Armstrong Recreation Center. That's number 25 Reed Avenue in beautiful Alexandria. Doors open at 6:30, but the bell starts at 7:30. VCWProWrestling.com for your tickets. Get your tickets. If it doesn't sell out, it was standard room only last time. I really hope that a lot of the folks that were there for the Logan Easton LaRoe retirement show come back, because, that bit of business aside, it was still a pretty solid show. Definitely interested in that one next weekend in Alexandria, VCWProWrestling.com for your tickets. But the show continues on as we go to Vegas.
Oh,
April 26th. So that's 2 weekends from now. Prestige Wrestling and Pride and Pride Wrestling are going to have a joint show. That's Pride Style Pro Wrestling. They're going to have a joint show out there at Club Meat in Las Vegas. That's number 233 South 4th Street in Las Vegas, right in downtown Vegas, a couple blocks south of Fremont. That whole, the Fremont LED craziness. It's pretty big show, joint show between Prestige and Pride Style. Alex Shelley's going to be there. Miyu Yamashita is going to be there. Mike Bailey, who's honestly super underrated. Tyler Bateman, Trisha Dora, Sinner and Saints. So a lot more named. Prestige Wrestling, big deal out there in the Portland area. They put on hell of a shows out there, but they're moving down to Vegas for the night and hooking up with Pride Style Pro Wrestling for their show in Vegas. You can get those tickets at PrestigeWrestling.net. So just to recap, if you're in Australia, Starcast is down there in Melbourne. If you're locally here in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, come on through next weekend in Alexandria. For VCW, Virginia Pro Championship Wrestling. And if you're out in Vegas on the 26th, Prestige and Pride Style, they're having a show together. You can get those tickets at PrestigeWrestling.net. It's a lot, but that is the Indie Spotlight for this week.
There you go, folks. 3 different locations we got you covered here on your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast. So, as we talked about in the first half, one of the big themes that was nailed home multiple times over WrestleMania weekend was the idea of a new era. Triple H came out at the beginning of night 1, told everyone this was the beginning of a new era. Stephanie McMahon returned on night 2 and put forth that idea again that this was the beginning of a new era for WWE. And with the ceremonial, I guess you could say, changing of the guard, with Roman Reigns finally losing the title, Cody becoming the face of the company, Damian Priest also taking the big title on Raw, lots of title changes, new people in different roles, as we talked about earlier. It does feel different. There's been a lot going on, with a new production. And then, of course, let's not forget new ownership. So compared to times where they've talked before about, this being a new generation or something, I think there is a lot of fuel to the fire here to the idea of, oh, this is different. This may be the turning of, a new chapter or something in WWE. So I guess overall becomes, what does it mean? What does it look like? Where do we go from here? What do you think, Brad?
Well, we've had the Attitude Era, then we've had the Ruthless Aggression Era, then we had the, Monopoly, so we don't have to try anymore era. And we've come to the He Shall Not Be Named era. And it would be to Netflix's best interest to cut all spiritual, metaphysical, and emotional ties and physical ties to Vince McMahon. Now, the question is, how do you do that? Now, Chris Benoit is pretty easy to do. He was a guy that was in a specific era where you're going to have to look a little bit harder to go get footage of.
Right.
Vince McMahon is a 40-year stalwart of WWE history. As a commentator, as an in-ring performer, as a multi-time champion.
Literally involved in every aspect of any possible area of the company.
Right. Until he retired from in-ring competition, and then became just a backstage owner. Still, you can't just sweep that under the rug and blur him out of the promos and whatever. You got to start new. That's the only thing. I mean, Vince McMahon is like nuclear waste. It will always be there long before the earth is done. The only thing that you can do is put it in a lead box and dig, just either jettison it into the sun or dig a damn deep hole and forget about it. And that seems to be what they're trying to do. It would make sense for Netflix to have them do that because of the fact that they don't want to be ties with that foolishness. And correct me if I'm wrong, Netflix is going to be raising their price to justify the WWE coming in starting next year.
They seem to be doing a price increase every darn year, so it wouldn't surprise me.
Well, they don't need a reason.
They don't launch until January. So.
Yeah, they don't need a reason, but I hear that that's going to coincide with another price increase. So Netflix doesn't wants no part of that. That's number one. The second bit of business is, what does this new era look like? I think this is the era of, dare I say, renaissance of the old meeting the new, because I think they're just going to, because what they seem to have been doing is getting back to basics with in-ring storylines remaining so. The bloodline is the biggest thing. Yes, sure, that is steeped in some reality because everybody's a cousin and all that good stuff too, but that is kind of self-contained. A lot of their other storylines are kind of self-contained. Logan Paul still made the cut, but Logan Paul will now be working the Japanese show in WWE, and they won't mention why. So they're obviously just trying to focus on the things that made them good, and that is, compelling matches, innovative ways to compelling matches and storylines, innovative ways to present these matches. WWE Speed debuted recently, and which is an interesting concept, but still, that's a thing they've never done before. Having a match made for the Twitter audience.
Yeah, as I've been calling it TikTok wrestling.
Pretty much. But that's
aimed at a different audience. It's a totally different thing, and I think that's fine.
Right. So what's the difference between a 3-minute squash match or a 3-minute match that's put together? It's still 3 minutes. So you can see that they're still innovating. With the presentation, they've stepped up their AR graphics. They have the that Sony camera that the NFL has been using for the 4K, super high bokeh shots in the ring and stuff like that. So they've definitely, and then of course we talked about the presentation, bringing the live product for TV around the world a lot farther. Yeah, they're doing house shows in the UK this weekend, but they had Clash at the Castle. They're doing France and Germany, and they're Australia, India. So they're really just starting to get back to basics in a way where it's hard to deny them, because a lot of people have just been wanting the chance to see them live in a meaningful way. So I like it. I like it. I think it's just keep it simple, and that seems to be what they're doing.
Hell, one of the biggest things I noticed in the past couple of weeks that happened to mention a few times now since Cody's won the title, and in the last week or so of the WrestleMania build, they're using the word wrestling again. They've actually used the term pro wrestling on there. Hell, they said pro wrestling is back. So Rock was kind of spearheading that, the idea that wrestling is cool again. So with Vince gone, the mandate of sports entertainment is clearly not being it's not concrete anymore. To where it's you have to, the hard and fast, it's sports entertainment, you're superstars, not wrestlers, blah, blah, blah. It's the rules are relaxing, and it's refreshing. It's different. And but it's also not anything that it's not anything I would say it's revolutionary, because it's always been, but it's for them, it's a step in it's a very easy move to make that I think gains them a lot of goodwill with some people.
Well, I've always called WWE the McDonald's of entertainment. Okay. And this would be if fair. McDonald's, I think so. But if this would be if McDonald's started hand making your patties made to order. Yeah. It's still the same sandwich. It is a Big Mac. It is a quarter pounder with cheese. but there's something different. And if they're not reinventing the wheel, because anybody can make a burger, but maybe it takes a little bit longer. But damn, they did something.
Yeah,
and
they give you some
kind of
customization options.
yeah, that's kind of and that's kind of where we are, and we're starting to see that things are being a little bit more authentic within the scope of wrestling. Michael Cole, who he's been there forever, and he's got to be on his way out. They're starting to try things. The Irish kid, I know the Irish kid didn't work out for a lot of reasons, but putting someone with a heavy ass accent like that on Raw was a bold choice for WWE. Samantha Irvin as a ring announcer, her not being coming from a lineage of ring announcers that were like pretty pale faced white men, that are 50 plus. That's a different change. And of course, we're seeing different characters too. So it's not just the square jawed white male that are coming to save the day. Your John Cena's, your Hogan's, your Sergeant Slaughters, your Randy Savages, stuff like that. We're seeing a different type of character. When you look at who these people are, people forget that Cody's Latin. Oops.
Is that Cuban blood in there?
Yeah, got the Cuban in him. So, but Cody bringing his interracial family into the stage, into the ring after he won, taking it over from, I'm going to say I'm calling him Joey Noy, but taking over from Roman Reigns and The Rock and fighting the bloodline. This isn't just the same cut and paste prototypical WWE wrestlers. They're definitely moving into different shapes, sizes, and people, and it's refreshing to see them get back to basics. That's what it is. It's basics in 4K. It's obviously the basics, but there's something different about the presentation that makes you go, "Yep, they went back to basics and they've kind of modernized the basics." It's still WWE. And if you don't like that style, you will not like that style. But I do appreciate the attempt to reinvent themselves and reposition themselves. Because you could arguably attest that to AEW, coming up, and we've said it, long before. Once WWE starts to get good again, everybody else has a problem.
Yeah.
And that's why AEW can come in and invade the space. That's why these super indies have been able to come in and invade the space, because WWE just sat on their hands and collect checks. They had enough of their fans to turn a profit, and they didn't have to invent anymore. Well, things happened. Vince happened. The SEC happened. They're moving. They're changing. Everything about this past year or so in WWE, 2 years maybe, has been about change.
Yeah, it's been a very quick process.
Mm-hmm.
So, Michal, think of it this way. Last year, WrestleMania ended. It was the next day that we heard about the sale's going to happen. That's when we first heard about Endeavor and all this. And then here we are now a year later, and it's like, the sale happened. It's done. The old man is out. There's new people in production. All those, all your Kevin Dunns, all the people that had been there forever, for the most part, are out of the picture. It's completely new people, other than Hunter steering the ship. But it's changed so fast when you think about it.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely, and it's been kind of a whirlwind ride in WWE for the past 18 months, 2 years plus, where we've seen these incremental changes. And I think the first thing I noticed was like the NXT getting on board with the WWE formula. And at first, NXT was its own thing. It was completely separate. And then it's supposed to be developmental. Well, how can you develop people for a thing that they're not going to do? And then they get to the main roster and flounder. Some of them make it. Most of them didn't. And then we see NXT align with what the WWE was trying to present. It's like, oh, this is different. Whether I like it or not will depend, but this is different. And now the question isn't whether or not somebody's ready for the main roster. The question is, when are we bringing them? Because they have people in the pipeline to take their place. I want to see this person on the main roster full time. We haven't said that about NXT in a long time, and then here we are a couple years later, wondering who's coming from NXT, and we started to see that already. So it's a very different place. They're back. It's almost like an alternate universe, where they're in the same space, but it's something different. And dare I say that this may be another 20-year cycle of that 2003 WWE, where they couldn't be the Attitude Era anymore, and they didn't know what ruthless aggression was yet, and they were just starting to figure it out. And I think that's where they are now. They're really starting to figure out what they want to be going forward, especially into the Netflix era.
There you go. All right, let's move on from this, because we'll be talking about this new era over the next coming weeks, because
it's a new day. Yes, it is.
Yeah, this is always an interesting time of year, because now is when they're going to try different ideas. They're going to try different stuff. So this will be an ongoing thing we'll be talking about in the weeks to come. For the last part of the show, we got to talk about this damn CM Punk deal.
Oh, dear.
AEW.
Oh, dear.
I am still trying to wrap my head around this whole deal. So I guess we should quickly lay the groundwork here that CM Punk WrestleMania week did an interview with Ariel Helwani on the MMA Hour. It was almost a 2-hour long interview, but the big stuff that came out of it was he talked about Brawl Out. He was asked questions and he answered them, and he shared a lot about what happened, went into specifics and all this, and ruffled a lot of feathers. We don't need, I think, to recap that part. In response, over the weekend, it comes out, AEW has decided that they are going to show the security footage from Wembley Stadium of the brawl that took place, or I guess the incident, we should say, the incident that took place between CM Punk and Jack Perry backstage that directly led to CM Punk being let go and ending up back in WWE. We've heard they had this footage because we heard it was reviewed when it led to his firing, but they're apparently like, okay, we're going to air the footage. We're going to show it on Dynamite this Wednesday. So kind of waited a couple days to see if it would really happen. Dynamite comes last night, and lo and behold, the Young Bucks come on, do a little promo, try to tie it into storyline, but they aired the footage. They showed the footage. They showed what happened. And afterwards tried to follow it up with some stuff for FTR and try to turn it into like kind of an angle with FTR being friends with CM Punk. And I think the first thing I just want to ask, what do you think they were going for here? What was the point? Did they accomplish anything good with this? Because I was left like, y'all really just put that on national TV?
So here's the problem. I think that this is the first time that AEW has broken. They've opened the protective casing. They've undid the latches and turned off the lasers, and they open the protective casing, and they pull out Gallagher's mallet, and they mash the panic button with Gallagher's mallet. And this is what that looks like. The footage, if you didn't watch Dynamite last night, the footage was introduced by the Young Bucks, who are heel EVPs, because why wouldn't they be? And they show the minute-long footage of the altercation, the scuffle, more like it. And then they turn this into how that scuffle affected their match with FTR at the show.
We lost because we were distracted. We didn't get to pray before our match.
Right. So they didn't mention Punk by name, but they said that because of that particular incident, which had nothing to do with FTR, they had to do their jobs as executives, which they weren't seen on the video either. They had to do their jobs as executives, which took them out of the match, which allowed FTR to win. So something promo build for the pay-per-view, which is in 10 days. Let's understand this. Is anyone talking about their pay-per-view in 10 days?
No.
Right.
Not at all. And here's, I think, the next thing I want to follow it up with. you promote this video, you promote this thing, you show that video, and then you try to promote FTR versus the Bucks coming out of that. But watching that video, all it left me saying was like, is there going to be a CM Punk and a Jungle Boy match on this show? Because that's what you just showed me fighting and having personal beef were these two guys. Right. And one of them don't work here. So, and the guy who didn't work here is the one who came out of it looking like he got the better of a little dust up.
So let's go to that then. So let's get a little context. Now you can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Jungle Boy at the pay-per-view wanted to use real glass in a spot, and CM Punk said, no, that's dumb, stupid, and dangerous. We're not doing that. Right? In his match, Jack took a back bump onto an actual windshield, and he said, yeah, this is real glass. Which, of course, yeah, exactly. That's where that meme came from.
On the broadcast.
Yeah. International television at Wembley, biggest show of the year. So after that match ends, Jungle Boy comes back through to backstage where CM Punk is like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? And that's the video that we see where Punk immediately goes to confront him. And
they're talking for a bit.
They're talking, for a little bit. The minutes of video, the video is a little bit over a minute. And they talk for about 40 seconds of that minute.
Yeah. And to be clear, let's make this clear also. There's no audio.
There is no audio, so we don't know what specifically said. There are no subtitles, so we have no idea what's being said. They are nose to nose, and the next thing you know, a hockey fight breaks out.
Yeah. So and it's very quickly broken up. It does not
now go let's that also be clear, there is no point where Jungle Boy says, hey, leave me alone, and walks away, and Punk grabs him. No, that didn't happen. They were nose to nose. Punk pushes him. It turns into a scuffle. It's immediately broken up. And what you don't see are, you do see 3 monitors off to the right side of the video where Tony Khan is sitting at that station producing the show, executive producing the show. And Punk leans over one of the monitors and yells something at him. And we can tell by his body language that he's actually yelling at him. Well, isn't that the story that we heard when it came out?
Feared for my life.
Right. Well, yes. Khan said that he feared for his life. Punk said that you're a clown. This is a clown show or something to that effect. The story that we heard back then is kind of corroborated by the video that we saw last night.
Yeah. Which
doesn't make sense. Okay, fine. You fired Punk, and maybe you had cause to do so. Your lawyer said you did. Okay, cool. Yeah, Jungle Boy, is in the land of wind and shadows, known as New Japan Strong, which has a pay-per-view coming up. I want to say tomorrow. No,
Chicago.
Yeah,
it's tomorrow.
It is tomorrow, which nobody's talking about. So, Jungle Boy is out. Punk's out of the company, and you use the Bucks to somehow round this video up into their match with FTR. No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense.
I mean, that was the thing that got me at the end of it. It was like, who benefited from this? Because it doesn't make the company look good, because it's just comes across like chaos and mismanagement. Punk, as far as the version he's given of the story, it pretty much backs up his version of the story of how he's told it and how he told it on Ariel Helwani's thing. There was stuff about, he punches being thrown, but it's more of like they're just kind of grappling.
It's
he tries to put him in a front face. Yeah, it's they brawl for a second. Harry definitely doesn't do anything in response to him. He gets pulled off and dragged over to the corner. As far as Punk went to first, I mean, Punk claims in every version he's given that when they were going back and forth, that Jack Perry was like, "What are you going to do about it?" And that if that's what set him off. After all that, then okay, then maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back. They were talking face to face, and he said, "What are you going to do?"
An understandable response.
Yeah, by that point, after everything that's in the big picture of everything that's happened, I think that's one thing a lot of people are ignoring here is they're just looking at that video and not taking into context the entire weekend of not getting picked up at the airport, what happened before the match, the line being said on the broadcast, all the drama that had been going on for months. It's like. This is like a culmination of a lot of different things in a very, a 1 minute video that we're seeing.
Right. So the context that we're not getting is everything that Will just said. And we're supposed to believe face value in the moment that, oh no, CM Punk took this poor little orphan Perry boy and he,
Jack Perry's the victim here.
Right. And that is a narrative that's been floated around. And then of course the other side of that is CM Punk was right to leave the company, however he had left, he was right to leave the company. This shit is a joke. It doesn't make sense. And the only reason why he wasn't at WrestleMania in the ring is because he was hurt. Glad he got out while he could, which is also understandable. I don't know what you do with this, but one thing that is not helping is the fact that no one seems to be talking about the New Japan show that has Jack Perry on it. No one seems to be talking about the pay-per-view at all. Like, Monet's going to have her first match. Nobody's talking about that. I think it's Bryan versus, I don't know what the card is. Yeah, Ospreay, yes. Yeah. That's supposed to be the big match. If you know, I guess. So it just doesn't do anything for anybody. I mean, it would be no different than said like, well, because of the eclipse, what are you talking about? It doesn't make sense. It just the whole thing is laughable, and then that's also what we're missing is that last week on Dynamite, it opened with Edge cutting this pro-communist, pro-AEW
the whole kumbaya pro wrestling is great. Let's all be friends. And this week it turns into we can't even get along in our locker room.
Well, they do that, and then he says, and that introduces Will Ospreay. And it's like, what is happening there? And we have this thing. What is happening there? Also, Khan came out in Chicago and let everybody in the audience know that he just fired Punk. Why did Khan make that address down? I mean, why have the Bucks do it in a promo when if this relays the seriousness of the situation, he has an opportunity to tell his side of the story in direct response to things that have been said and alleged or this interview and whatever. Why did he was the one that feared for his life. He said that.
Yeah, that was the line when they got rid of him that week. That was the line he came on Collision and said that he feared for his life. And right. That's one of the things like coming out of this show in this video that people now are just like, bro, what are you talking about? The table you were sitting at got bumped at the most. He didn't even lunge across it at you or knock anything down. It's like unless there's that
table spot put the fear of God in.
I mean, there may have been a separate incident, but most folks watching this, they're looking at this video. It's like that's it. Yeah, right. That's it. It's right. Like this is what caused all this drama was like this minor little right.
Scuffle. So you're telling me that we had like an actual little dust up in a pro wrestling locker room.
Yeah.
Now we've all heard the story
around. It's like
this isn't Steve Blackman versus Bradshaw.
Yeah. It didn't get one of my favorite stories. Anyone could even throw a punch because too many people were around for it to even happen.
Right. Because immediately it was as quickly as it started, it ended because they were surrounded by everybody. And then, of course, Punk, who was, standing in front of the table, yells over to Khan, things, who, fear for his life. He saw his life flash before his eyes. My God. I don't know what they're thinking. And I really, this, honest to God, feels like WCW, Mick Foley's winning the championship. You all don't need to watch that.
I've heard a lot of people mention that today. That WCW 2000 comparisons. It comes across as like a desperate move to try and pop a rating last night. But I think the problem now is like,
what was the rating last night then?
It went up. It went up. It was like 800 something. It went up, but
that's
like
the problem.
What I want to see is how much did it go down or whatever. What happened after they aired this? Did it stay
I didn't have access to the hour, the quarter hour ratings because obviously that was what people's morbid curiosity got them into. Yeah. But it was up to 819,000 over last week, which is barely a 10% increase.
It's not a huge bump or anything.
That is within their realm of of plus or minus.
Yeah.
On a decent day, and of course they're still dealing with the ramifications of sports and stuff like that. We're getting into playoff time for basketball and hockey. There's just a baseball is happening again. So there's a lot of reasons not to watch wrestling on a Wednesday, and it is what it is. So now it's kind of like, this screams desperate.
Well, I never even mind. Okay, you showed this, you got people's attention with it. You can't follow it up next week. You showed the footage. You had the whole thing was you had footage to show. You showed the footage. Now what do you got?
Right.
It's like you can't play that card again.
And the giant question is, how does this build to the pay-per-view?
Yeah.
That no one seems to be talking about. It just doesn't. It just doesn't make sense. Now the
the
question that I have, and then we're up against the clock, but the question that I have is, this happened back in August,
right?
In the UK, and please, if you're out there, you know the answer to this. Get at us on the Big Gold Belt on everything. But does this violate privacy laws in the UK?
From what I was hearing from people over there today, supposedly it does. That's supposedly closed circuit camera footage.
Right.
This is not footage AEW would own. This is footage from Wembley Stadium from their cameras, which would be considered public closed circuit camera footage because it's a public building.
It's not a public building because I don't have access to it at all times. It's not a park. So, and also you need tickets to get into the building. So it's not just public in the sense that it is owned and managed by somebody. It is a private building. With that said, the privacy laws in the UK are pretty different. And if you keep security footage, CCTV footage, you can only keep it for a certain amount of time. I've generally read that it's 30 days within reason or longer with cause. So maybe you're helping with a police investigation, or you want to hold on to this footage because you see something that's an anomaly that may come up later or something like that. But generally speaking, you kind of just can't hold on to CCTV footage, which makes sense because if a hot girl is walking past your Ring camera, you can't just hold on to that forever.
Mm-hmm.
You got to let it go. Because now we're talking about, a surveillance issue. Also, you have to blur people's faces if you're not going to tell them that you are presenting this footage to the public as well. They have to consent to that.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, they're copyright striking people who posted it since yesterday. They're aggressively going after it being out there now, which is strange. Where it's like, you put it on national TV yesterday.
They edited it. Their YouTube video, they edited the footage out of it.
Yeah, everything about it is very weird. The way it's been handled. I truly wonder if some lawyer over there went, oh no, you can't do this. Phil Brooks may have the opportunity here to do something really damn funny.
This would be peak comedy.
And we know he does not have an issue suing people. We know.
No, he does not. But this would be peak comedy if the WWE, on behalf of their contracted talent, sued AEW for a couple of different things: slander, libel, whatever you want to call it, and violating his privacy in the UK. Because now that he's an employee of theirs, they could do that. It will be interesting to see if they have to completely scrap this entire angle for whatever it was because of the legal ramifications coming out of the UK.
Yeah, the aftermath of this is going to be because in the last 24 hours, it does not seem to have gone well for them.
It has aged like milk.
Yeah, the immediate reaction, I don't think they imagined it would come across how it did, where most people are just like, so CM Punk did what he said. Or Jack Perry don't look good coming out of this. It's like, I don't.
It's all losses. It doesn't. The pay-per-view is the 21st. Jack Perry's match is tomorrow for New Japan, and nobody seems. And the Monet, Sean, I think has faded quite a bit. So
she desperately needs to have a good match when she finally wrestles.
She needs to have an amazing match.
Yeah.
Especially if she's going to be billed as the face of the division. And we'll talk about that later, too. But she needs to have a 5-star match, period.
Interesting times we are in.
Yep.
We talked about New Era tonight. It's a new era probably in a bunch of different places, it sounded like.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Folks, a busy night. We knew we had a lot to get into, so we went a little bit long tonight, but that's okay because hell, WrestleMania week is going to keep you busy, and just pro wrestling in general these days. There's always something going on. So, folks, we are glad you tuned in tonight. Thanks for being here with us. Thursday nights, 8 p.m., your Big Gold Belt Wrestling Podcast is live each and every Thursday night, streaming right here, biggoldbelt.com/live. Of course, also on social media, Twitch, Twitter, X, wherever you want to call it, YouTube, streaming on all those platforms at Big Gold Belt. Of course, Big Gold Belt Media, wrestling, movies, comics, and more. You can also keep up on the website, biggoldbelt.com, like I mentioned at the top of the show. Lots of interviews from WrestleMania Weekend are currently going up on the YouTube page, along with a lot of stuff from CinemaCon that 2 Chainz is out right now in Vegas. Lots of content going up. A lot of stuff in the last week. It's been busy, busy, busy. We've had 2 Chainz on the ground at all these events. So follow along at Big Gold Belt because there's a lot of stuff happening in entertainment. Stuff's heating up with summer on the way. So, folks, we got you covered. So Thursday, 8 p.m. next week, we will be here. Hope you will be too. Until then, folks, stay safe, watch some wrestling, and we will talk to you soon.
All I really